All right. Hello, welcome everyone. This is Synergetics Livestream number 24.1, 24.1, and 24 of the other, the Dark Knowledge Imaginarium. It's February 27th, 2025. This is Daniel Ari Friedman. Here's the Livestream link, and this will be something a little different for the 24th-ish Synergetic stream. Very much looking forward to sharing what I've been working on today. So let's get the initial action items off to a start. First, in GitHub, I'm going to push a very large 25,000 file GitHub push to this repo. Hopefully it'll go on through. While that is happening and getting pushed to my doxology branch of School of Tomorrow, I'm going to, within Obsidian, publish to a live sync page all articles that we're about to be looking at. Pushing the origin is going to take a little bit. So here we go. Got Obsidian, publish, happening. We got GitHub, push, ongoing. In the trim tab mailing group, I'm about to send this email that has the stream and the live stream address, the interactive Obsidian sync, and the code repo. So I'm going to post that real time. 5:27 Pacific. All right. Having sent this, Obsidian is going to be chugging away. This is going to be, again, a very different stream. This is going to be reflecting a lot of the work that I've been doing over the last day or two in Cursor 0.46 and Obsidian using the Claude 3.5 Sonnet 2024-1022 language model. In Cursor, there's Claude 3.7, which came out just a few days ago, but it's not available at the level I'm at. So that's what I was largely working on. Where this is going to head is a very exciting direction in, I hope, a lot of areas that people can find resonances with. So, meanwhile, the publishing happens. Live chat, I'm looking forward to people's contents and suggestions. And let us begin with going to where the agenda for the live stream is in Cursor. So here we are in Cursor looking at plain text of a markdown for what was just appearing in the Obsidian app here on the left side in a formatted way. So note the double bracket linking format and how lists are structured. And then also that we can edit it as plain text manually and also call it over to the agent mode on the right to make edits. So we made the 3 initial action items. And that will modify how this shows up once it gets back to reloading it on the left side there. Okay, to note on what the Dark Imaginarium is, this is just a quick reference for inspiration and tipping the hat to the paper Dark Imaginarium, Infinity Curiosity and Dark Consciousness by Shannon Dobson. And the abstract is, we investigate the idea of sleep as the proto-state and posit the idea of dark consciousness where dark is a twofold hybrid. We model dark consciousness as a two topos in p-adic time and outline perfectoid and diamond-like versions. We then introduce and illustrate implications of Dark Imaginarium which is a higher order curiosity, artificial intelligence, an infinity curiosity type that thinks in infinity categories. So let us begin this discussion once everything is published. All right. Here, when we pop back into it, we have published everything. So let's look at what everything looks like online while GitHub is finishing its push. So here's in the README entry point for the Obsidian sync. I'm going to put the Obsidian sync link in the live chat. Okay, and GitHub has updated. So here we go. 4 minutes ago. And here's the updated, again, Obsidian style. And we'll explore why there's 25,000 files here shortly. So things have been updated in the School of Tomorrow fork. We're now entering the dark Imaginarium. And looks like Obsidian will just take a few minutes to load this indexing. And then we'll continue from there. So, here we go. Oh, where to even begin on this? First, I'll be in the Obsidian app. So what we're looking at here are folders of nested markdown that are being co-opened at the same moment in Cursor and in Obsidian. And what these nodes articles are rich markdown formatted files. So here we are in 4D. And we can play around with the force directedness, and we can look at all these topics that were written to be in the 4D article. Here's historical development. So these are editable mermaid diagrams. These were all written by giving that example of the 4D. Here, over in the chat window at the right, comprehensively add technical relevant sections and linking to 4D article. Many such prompts, but I think you can get the idea. That's going to add to the 4D article in plain text that'll then be re-rendered this way. And Obsidian is going to parse for the links to extant articles, which can be filtered down to with existing files only to look at the topology of only extant files, like how 5 is connected to numbers. Or you can do sort of proto-links and stubs, where even though some of these terms haven't yet had standalone markdown files made for them, they can still be viewed in this associative rhizomatic network. Here is applying the update to 4D, just to show what the major motif of the last hours of working on this looked like. And here it is, adding these new lines, connecting with quadray coordinates, adding some math, adding some advanced geometry, adding some diagrams, which can have good structured content, and just inserting those several dozen lines there. Maybe it'll make another edit, maybe not, and then we'll accept those changes and they'll re-render in the Obsidian style and also appear that way in the online Obsidian publish format, which I guess just takes a little bit to load, unless I'm blocking it with something. Okay, so we will come back to looking at the concept, but first, just to give a walkthrough of the structure of the repo. So it looks like also interleaving some edits. Okay, so we're going to go through these, each of the folders, and look at some of the articles in deeper relation, looking through a code walkthrough. But first, with the visuals up, we're going to look at the folders. So concepts represents a variety of concepts, including active inference. Node of interest is always going to get highlighted with the chosen highlight color. Through core ideas related to Bucky Fuller, like the chronophile. That's concepts. Documentation is like a repo level documentation. Inside of this are workflows, standardizations and protocols for workflows, tool documentation, including a blog scraper that's going to come into play, templates for articles. So here is a markdown file style, which could be standardized with a template, but these are just reference templates for different kinds of documents, so that then when the prompt is like, make an awesome, compliant, template-driven person article for XYZ, it will be able to do that. That's templates. Systems, different functional systems in this repository. But some of these are just, of course, all open to changing the structures. Streams is a documentation for the stream that we're in right now in the Synergetics live stream. Earlier version. So now we can delete this whole folder. Metadata schema. Useful prompts that I found. Meta, readme, guides for repo level information, and then examples. So documentation is more stub-like, but still has a lot of useful things. Fonds. A fond is a term from archival science about something like an assemblage of materials. So it could be like all of the issues of a given journal or all of somebody's collected papers. So here the fonds include blogs, focused on 4 of Kirby's blogs: Bismo Diaries, Coffee Shops, Comparative Analysis, and Control Room. These, every single post has been brought in with a blog scraper. So let's delete the one that we can delete this. Here, for example, are the posts for Bismo Diary. We can improve pulling the images and some other features, but this was just to demonstrate, yeah, we can have these nicely structured Obsidian linked plain text knowledge artifacts, and we can ingress and scrape using different frameworks to bring informally just the semantics of these writings, so that then a prompt, like if we think, okay, well, there's one of these posts is a BFI event. Entity processing and extraction can be done on these and manual annotation. And also, if we were to prompt something generic, like what would have happened at this event, or who would that person have gone to here, it's kind of like the cloud companies offering generative AI in your email inbox. It's like you have all these papers, and then it has access to snippets of the semantics of those papers, so that they bias the predilection of the state of the model, so that when you generate something about who shows up at BFI events, it might come up with D.W. Jacobs. That's the post's blogs. Books. Here's the book index. Let's look at this over in the visualization section. So here's the books index. So the files that it's connected to are books, because it is linked like just disappeared it. It's linked to these books, and then those articles are short or long, but they can be linked. I just added a few books because obviously there's more comprehensive ways to do citation management, but just wanted to make some of these articles. Documents are various kinds of documents, including the agenda for the stream. Here it is. And some slide features in Obsidian. So here is an example where the ASCII logo page, tetrahedral geometry, synergetics transformation, 4D lab, the time lock protocol, chronoflow quantum geometry. That and this buggy portrait get embedded within another set of slides that are separated with these 3 dashes. So this can be zoomed in and used for, it's just a separated document, but again, it can be used for all kinds of mermaid, diagram, linking, learning paths. So that's the documents section. Mailing lists, these are not scraped yet, but conceivably we can scrape different mailing lists that we like, and also same for GitHub repos, of which there's many useful ones. Formalisms, so here let's reopen the graph view on the side. This is exciting because first there's many directions we can go with a formalisms folder or other sort of functionally analogous roles played, but made a folder for numbers. So let's look at the number 0 article. These lines can all be improved on, developed on, person by person, forked, all this good stuff. Mermaid diagrams can be repaired. It gets interesting when we then can connect, well, where's everywhere that 2 is mentioned? Where does 2-ness appear? What are ways in, let's see if we turn off existing files, 2. So these are the shadow files in the 2 file. So these are like not at the level of being an article, but in a more open-ended generative niche. Of course, these could be retrieved through API call or just generated on the spot. It's like these are ways of viewing 2-ness. And there's other ways to view 2-ness, and there's questions of when and how it'd be appropriate or adaptive to view 2-ness a given way, or to where and how and when to view 2-ness with respect to 3-ness, or where these numbers pop up, even in really symbolically defined zones, like how many vertices or edges are in a tetrahedron, on through the number of events that relate of a certain kind. And just being like, yeah, like where does 4 come up? And what are all these ways that people talk about 4-ness? Like tetrahedral systems, minimum structure, 4D design, system completeness, spatial systems. Those are all kind of, and there's more that we can add. And the semantics of this information becomes very useful for subsequent development by the LLMs in this very repo. Ways to look at 1. Which ways of looking at 1, 2, and 3 do and don't have what kinds of coherences? Do not worry about the beeping sound. It's all good here. 4 alarm. Forms. Here's just a few starter points for articles written on the shapes. So embodying the principle of it's written with FOUR, but now we're using the just number, so it can be changed in the embedding. And then again, with fixing different norms around what is typed into these plain text links, like instead of face, it's a plain. But then there are draggable, linkable information topologies that's like, yeah, what are the geometric properties of a tet? Who has been involved in it? How is it related to triangle and octahedron? Where does the vector equilibrium get you? What links, even not using the Obsidian features, what are the code methods for implementing volume calculations? What about using the Synergetics constants? Let's look at Synergetics constant. S3 is the square root of 9 over 8, 106, 066, etc. It represents the ratio between volumes in the XYZ IVM coordinate system. We're going to return to this, but the IVM XYZ paradigm can be using the semantics of scraped blogs and trained materials and just the non-controversial analytical basis of these discussions enable some new applicabilities, also drawing on Kirby's open source code and repairable and testable where we see it's inadequate. We can develop some very interesting functional code executing elements amidst this wonderful chocolate chip cookie so full of connective tissue and probabilistic and latent spaces. So that's the dark Imaginarium. Articles on Triangle just being written by being in the forums folder. Let's open up Cube. Let's open up Triangle and say, add another forms node fully linked on Hexagon. So while it's doing that, Fuller Obsidian output. This is an old folder, so I will delete that. Do some quick midstream updates. Let's see if the Obsidian sync has still not caught up yet. There we go. Just had to reload different URL. So here, now it's interactable with the knowledge graph at that site. So if you want to go to concepts, design science, here's a stable URL for these topics. But a stable, a little eddy of stability. Mathematics only added several different articles ranging from category theory, information that can be daunting to parse manually, but can be well structured by pattern detecting and applying LLMs, information theory, and a math index that can be improved and developed as articles are written, or as more of a reference point for where you would want to pick up with a math index, and then a math library could be hosting a more copiously maintained linking set of articles. Organizations, here are not all written, but some articles just written, people, places, and things, and how possible it is to generate articles on the fly. People, here's the people index. This was made through a combination of just base prompting, say write an article on Buckminster Fuller, and then for some individuals also doing a perplexity search, like using online search, which I know MCP and other methods inside a cursor can do too. So I'm looking into learning that. But research the life and work of X person. Then it writes a report based upon online searching. And then I say, with this retaining and actual semantics from this vertical information, write a bio on Amy Edmondson. So and here's the mermaid, the career paths, professional networks. The articles are of different styles. Alec Naval-Ali. And then it can link to Inventor of the Future. So then here we are, Alec Naval-Ali. Okay, science fiction, public lectures, City of Exiles. These are the ones that are the stub pages. And then what else is it connected to? People Index, Inventor of the Future, Books Index. Okay, Inventors of the Future. Here's this one. Can we subset down to it just so we can zoom in? See that neighborhood. Okay, Alec Naval-Ali. Doesn't seem to be connected to Bucky Fuller. Okay, it should probably mention that. It's because, again, it's mislinked. So there's little things like this, but these can all be incrementally and also en masse repaired. Now we add Bucky Fuller. Now in the graph view, it should be attached, but it's not. Maybe it just needs to reload too. Andreas, Bonnie DeVarco, copied, research in, Buckminster Fuller. This could be a fractal writing. It could have structural information about different periods of time, doing different work, influence network. Of course, this could be generated relationally here, but it could also be represented in text like this. Different linkings to contributions at Applewhite. Kirby Earner, family tree, life timeline, movements, career, Stroopy poll, spherical thinking, different ways of calling. That's the people. Places. Here's the places index. Similar. This could be using a more structured geospatial ontology or an informal one. And then it can be like, okay, Cascadia. Here's some places within it. Here's a little bit about the bioregion. Here's Black Mountain College. Here's what happened there. Here's where that connected with John Cage. Dimmed out. Article not written. Go over to cursor. Write the John Cage article and densely link. Like that kind of unfolding. It's really just a question about how much and to what angle. Not will it come back with good information. It will come back with information that depends on the zone of latent space that you want to cosmic fish in. Slides. Just some more. This is the slide rendering with the 3 dots. So there could be just like slide decks specifically. I think that might have, maybe we can replace that in the other slides folder. Terms, edge, plane, space. These files can be, their namespace can be modified and brought in, and it can be plain version, this point, that, maintained by this person in their, whatever way they are maintaining it. But articles, technical, kind of esoteric for no reason at all, in plain sight. Articles unfolding, being written, add more detail, add more technical detail to points, to vertex, and space. Connecting with specific category theory topics. These can be reviewed incrementally, methodically, specifically. And then there's the tools. For the tools, I'm going to go into cursor again. There are several tool types. One of them is the file systems subtools. Here are reporting on the file structure of the repo. So that report helps then an LLM look at the context for the repo. Cursor has its own ways of doing this as well. But it can also help or be useful for its own reasons to make these file system tracers. Parser is a Obsidian indexing method that moves in and out of Obsidian style and machine readable structured formatting that can be useful for modular documents. Okay, here's the additional category theory elements on vertex and space. To be reviewed if accurate, but if and where it's accurate, and there's already accurate connections, like, oh, for this category theoretic construct or topic, here's how this language implements it in this situation. But then there are just these associative networks that trace all the way from ways that we think about space on through the tactics and the logistics of implementation. Then there's the scrapers. So the main scraper that I made with a few shot coding with a Claude 3.5 were to scrape the blogs of Kirby. So this does bloat the GitHub repo, but this is just a sandbox anyway. And there can be better approaches to scraping and archiving, but the idea is the fawns can host. Let's look at it. What it looks like in Obsidian: fawns, blogs, coffee shop posts. So this one looks like it doesn't get all of them, but Bismo, it does. Okay, let's just see if it only displays that many there. Okay, these are visualizations that don't exactly work, but we can get visualizations on statistics of blogs and word clouds, natural language processing, etc. But they're not loading. We could try to fix it. Posts, yeah. So here's many posts from Control Room blog. Hexapent. So here's a lot of information in the plain text with the links. And then we have the primary archival layer of just like the best possible total scrape of this and, salted and hashed and all that good stuff. But also, for. We know that word. For. And then that manually and through programmatic methods, like just every time the word is mentioned, replace it with the Obsidian link, all of a sudden it's like, we have a topological handle on every time a certain number was mentioned in a whole blogging corpus or in a whole works. Might even be worth a try. World game, also many thousands of posts. Looks like this one is not pulling the texts, but as with all of it, just sort of schematic, and some of it works in different ways than others. Let's look at this one and just see. Write a new documents file that structures this completely and only as Obsidian linked file. Using MCP, cursor rules, other improvements in the context will all make some of this other stuff a little bit secondary that I'm kind of just guiding the prompting on. So it's just early experiments, but let's see it restructuring it like this. So every time the number 2011 comes up, but that could be used syntactically in like a ternary code system to represent some other number. I'm going to reject the edit though. So that becomes one of the questions about link syntax and semantics. When do we want to reference specific subversions of topics, like disambiguation pages in Wiki, something sort of like that? So that actually covers the repo. It's on GitHub. It's on Obsidian Sync. I think we can look at a couple of these concepts and people. Some of them are really fun. Otherwise, people in the live chat could write a comment or a question or a possible direction, and possibly for some time I'll work on some feature if someone suggests it in the coming minutes. Otherwise, this doesn't have to be so long. I hope that it's pretty self-evident what it is and a few of the tools that are in this and the Inferant streams about using synthetic intelligence, about using Cursor to make multi-channel repositories that have executable elements like scrapers and other functionalities, probabilistic models, and can have potentially overwhelming or complete elements of pure markdown structured plain text. It's really cool, and we can write fun articles. So here's the USAOS. This one has a timeline and just 2 or 3 prompts. I said make there be a vertical timeline, make it longer. Okay, Grunch. Economics to GST. Evolution of USAOS education. Network structure. Innovation development areas. This timeline, I don't even know what the contents are. Zooming in as much as possible. But the structured plain text information is there. So it takes a little bit to render those big drawings. So here's this drawing, system timeline. We can still zoom in more. But it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily the optimal visualization. But on the other hand, it contains a very, very dense symbolic representation that can be checked, like pre-colonial systems. Information can be added here with very few tokens, and each of these can be added and linked and expanded upon. One topic that Kirby and I and others have been exploring is this intersection with history and learning the minute particulars, building software, and then also connecting this to just some topics that we like. Could be any topic that we like, but also some of these pragmatic, literally, and operational considerations. So it's like, yeah, how is USAOS related to pragmatism, operationalism, and transcendentalism? Or how does common law and these become structural hypotheses or maps of complex territories? So maybe somebody else says, well, there should be some. It's all good. Someone can just live make the edit. Oh, USAOS v 1.0. Actually, it was version 1.1. Click away. Now it's 1.1. Emergency protocols. Power distribution layers. Speculative USAOS realism. Constitutional architecture, connecting with some other work that's more on the org chart build out using Obsidian and Cursor and other resources to develop organization charts for USA and governments, to be complemented by other types of connectivity and influence diagrams. So the Obsidian link format can get to these super useful visualizations and strategies, again, in the open source for all these reasons that plain text is awesome. At the same time, having edges bear more expressive ontological content, as well as multiple overlapping, fully traced quantitative assertions. Like this person thinks that on this day there's a 0.2 connection where 1 would mean this and 0 would mean that for this edge. Whereas right now it's more like a wiki, in that it's things that are mentioned where there is or isn't an article for it already. So, making more advanced relational graphical models from the at least the minimum viable products and services that are reflected with what is just a couple of hours of prompting away, plus a bringing together of curating of resources. It's pretty wild, and it's very pragmatic. Let's look at this page. Okay, philosophical networks of pragmatism is not working. New chat. Concepts, pragmatism. The mermaid diagrams are not working for philosophical networks, USAOS integration, fix those diagrams and comprehensively add nested details sophisticatedly within them too. Even getting some connection blips with Claude 3.5, 3.7, not reliably available, but these and more will be available. Okay. Pragmatism. So if you have it connected on the left pane, then it'll be highlighted here. Let's just subset to that neighborhood. Synergetics comes along for the ride. USAOS, pragmatism. Still regenerating more code on pragmatism. Then we'll look at some of these concepts and do this high-powered synergetics associative learning fun review time. Okay. Said that it made edits. Check over the pragmatism article. Okay, philosophical, just remind yourself. Philosophical networks and USAOS integration were not working. Okay, now here's philosophical networks. Huge, wide, yeah, maybe that's not the one to put on your slides. However, making slide decks from this information, translating across languages using these structured concordance tables and plain text formats is already very effective. System weaving. The other one that was not working was USAOS integration. Here. Very long sideways chart. Transcendentalism. Holistic vision. Double bracket 1. And related topics. Unity networks. Not working with a diagram, but just some of these things are just a few wrinkles being steamed out away from just being taken to yet another level. Hey, here's a style guide on how to accurately use mermaid. Make a vast style guide with actionable examples in the right places for how to use mermaid. Mark down diagrams for autonomous agents in this repo. Chronofile. Okay, it represents Fuller's systematic approach to documenting his life and work from 1915 till 1983. Creating what may be the most detailed, self-documented life in history. Numbers. Chronofile. Even just some low-hanging fruit like, yeah, is it connected to Bucky Fuller already? Again, at the meta linkage level, we can compute hypergraphs that can spin out Obsidian repos on the fly. So this is sort of like building our intuition for the topological elements and characters of information projections. There isn't necessarily any given fixed, discrete, or continuous topology that could represent all these ideas, especially as projected onto a flat screen, like the computer screen. Quadray coordinates, 4-dimensional coordinate system. Let's update Quadray's article. Bring in a few important terms. Four. Developed by Kirby and others related to IVM and IVM XYZ. Play around with the different graph options. Gephi and Cytoscape and some other methods can give more expressivity in the visual component of the graph. But just getting it to this level is an awesome learning experience. Dymaxion. Okay. Nice. Design science education, phenomenology, energy efficiency. Dymaxion. Dymaxion map. Here, just in another window, I'm getting the image. Just paste the image in. So now there's an image in that file. I am curious to see how well Cursor handles these truly mixed multimedia options. But in GitHub, it should be fine. Changed. New. Dymaxion map. There it is. Synced. And it works on GitHub too. Ephemeralization. Ephemeralization represents Fuller's principle of achieving progressively more with less through technological evolution and design innovation, forming a core component of his design science methodology. CADS, Comprehensive Anticipatory Design Science. Add a few little links. Modern teachers include grunge. Could be some fun dialogues generated around grunge. Okay, subset down to it. Let's look at the grunge neighborhood. Let's do some updates on grunge. Add vastly many more references, Obsidian style, to grunge. Be timely and historical and comprehensive. In linking. Okay. Grunge. Gross universal cache heist is Bucky Fuller's analysis of how corporate entities have come to dominate global resource and economic systems, challenging traditional democratic institutions. Lots of places to go, even just from that version. Keep on trying. Current system, topology of grunge. How is general systems theory related to grunge studies? Okay, let's watch as Cursor does that. Let's watch the grunge neighborhood. And it will sprout off a few new pieces. There it goes. Bretton Woods, blockchain. Okay. Reload Grunch. So it added all of these lists in the format of Obsidian links, but East India Company, New Deal, Great Depression, Military Industrial Complex, different resources, different relevant people. All of these are just dimmed out links, so they appear in that smaller periphery around Grunch. But they're all there. There's Grunch. Let's just look at a few more. I'm in the last sort of part here. If anyone watching live wants to write some question or idea, let us pursue it. Otherwise, I'll look through a few more slides, just do a few quick reviews, see a few more ways it could develop. Then I'm going to put this aside for a little bit and see what others do, getting it all operating in their own hands locally using these techniques and others. Martian math. Martian math represents an alternative mathematical framework developed by Kirby Erner, integrating Fuller's synergetics with educational mathematics through tetrahedral rather than cubic thinking. This approach, developed at Portland's School of Tomorrow, offers a fundamental reimagining of mathematical education. Let's look at its neighborhood. Okay. Origins and evolution. Key topics. Given the blog context and everywhere, absolutely totally as per blog scrapings, please augment the Martian math article with many authentic, actual hyperlinked and Obsidian linked great points to make in adding to the actual educational and historical value. So then Martian math should have a little sprouting. Oh. Okay, here's Martian math. There, it just sprouted another shell of topics. Shows up edits in GitHub. Those get pushed to the School of Tomorrow fork that I have. Over in Obsidian, I set up shift plus period to be the publish shortcut. Publish changed and new articles. Then it's live over here. Okay, so those are some of the concepts, fundamental concepts of synergetics. Okay, let's fix some of these synergetics visualizations since that's a key article. In synergetics.md, the mermaid diagrams for fundamental concepts, research frontiers, conceptual networks. Oh, a lot of ones not working. Okay. Those are not working. Ensure these mermaid diagrams are all fixed, and mega comprehensively add so many actual relevant details to these technical important notes. So now just check out the online version. Here's the error in the parsing the mermaid diagram on the live version. This prompt should fix and extend the mermaid diagrams here through cursor AI use. That'll modify these once we see them rendering properly over here. Then push to Obsidian Sync Publish, reload, and then this stable link will have the updated versions. Just walking through this a few times since the key moves are few and not so far between, and really cool documentation, plus, plus, plus. I look forward to seeing people make as well. Okay. Fundamental now looks like they're all working. Shift period. Published. Reload. There's the fundamental concepts. Looks like, let's see what it looks like in GitHub. So here it is in Obsidian Sync. Can't scroll to the side. At least it could be something blocking on my browser or something. But for ultra wide things, it doesn't look that good. Here's what it all looks like. So interesting. Well, oh, that's because I didn't put the GitHub push, of course. Update Synergetics. Push. Reload. There it is. Looks really good on GitHub. You can copy. You can zoom in, move around. Again, the pre-post meta link paradigm is like a little bit more sophisticated of a relational database that can then use programmatic procedural generation to spin out clean markdowns or hyperlinks for GitHub, and then pure Obsidian style for local and for Obsidian Sync. but there can be an underlying source of truth that generates different markdown renderings and flavors. This could also be done in LaTeX, which would be another step up. That could be awesome. These again, these diagrams, maybe they're useful to look at directly. I wonder if we can get a PNG of them, or just the fact that these can be engaged with in a plain text way. So it's like someone in the live chat could say, I think this or that should be a core concept for Synergetics. And if it's during a stream, I can write it in. Or somebody can raise an issue in the GitHub. Or they can fork their own and just say, look how cool, I added this other first principle or this other second principle. Okay, Synergetics constant. Getting some of the structured logic that does exist analytically. Like, how do you modify which numbers by which in the situation where you are using close packing spheres, sphere center distance as 1 or as 2? How do you deal with the volumetrics and all that comes along for the ride with that scaling allometry? Trim tab. Related to trim tab readers. Okay, more topics on trim tab. And cybernetics. Vector equilibrium. This is close packing of 12 spheres, round 1. Again, it's one of those moments where it's like, whoa, we could hyperlink every word, or words are already like that. Our tech isn't necessarily already like that per se, but it's not far off. And whatever state it is in a given machine setup, language is like that. Like that. Let's look at some people and places. Let's look at CJ Fearnley. Cool information, I think, from Perplexity and or copying some pages of his site. But all of these can be built out vastly. Let's look at the Kirby neighborhood. So I added a few manual links in and out of here, but we can see USAOS, connection with Stroopy, Quadre coordinates, myself, Cascadia, Martian math. Each of these can be like a little topological neighborhood with, first, nothing too much more sophisticated than a wiki-style double bracket link. Again, in a more information geometry context, we might be interested in like the cosine similarity or the KL divergence between different clusters or other clustering methods. In a more ontologically sophisticated setting, we might be interested in edges like is a type of, is a part of, is an instance of, is not, is known by, all these different edges that are a lot richer, but within this plain text wiki style, there's enough structure, plus the training of the models, plus bringing in new information fonts to structure very, very well and already have so much fun learning from these networks that we can weave. Design Science Studios. Let's see who's connected. Here in Perplexity. Research all people ever connected with Design Science Studios. Here's just an example, again, with the MCP and all these other methods in Cursor. It's going to be just on another level, even in Cursor, which is still just a manual version of doing what I'm doing right now. Do an online search for a bioregion or for everyone ever associated with Design Science Studio. Okay. Copy the Perplexity response. Go to Places, Design Science Studio in Cursor. New chat. Add Obsidian style links for all of these entities. Okay, here's Design Science Studios. Oh, it's adding it to organization, so I'm going to stop that one. Update. These are minor norms of like, well, if you do capitalize the first one, or what do you decide to capitalize or not for this plain text file naming constraint of Obsidian. Again, as mentioned earlier, there's like a post-meta link paradigm where you have a custom semantics and syntax for a relational database, and then you deploy deterministic Obsidian repos. That's for a future time. But here is the casino math, AI augmented usage of semi-structured plain text. Now it just grew all of these people through taking just information from Perplexity, paste it in, add this info, make it linked. If you want to make a person, then you just click and it will appear in the folder specified. Okay. I'll just review the repo to do. Unless in these last minutes anyone has some comment or question or suggestion they would like on this stream. Fastly add to the terms index for most possible relevant terms best fitting here rather than anywhere else it could be in file structure. So here it's following up on the Design Science Studios. So it's going to carry over some of that semantics. If we started a new chat, Then the context window, again, speaking to a first approximation here, the context window would consist of the training salience distribution of the LLM kernel model being called through the API, plus a bunch of other pre-filters and lenses and RAG-like strategies that Cursor is doing under the hood. So here now it has made the terms index. That's a plain text readable file. It is here. So again, we can look at, well, which one of these terms do we want? We could get into ecosystem. That might be a shared term, like shared atlas term or shared reference, or partial identity or overlapping or differential perspectives on ecosystems with like an ecology department or lab. Repo to do. Let's use a chat to help us here. Comprehensively develop out this repo to do, always ensuring best obsidian linking approach and diligent care. Figuring out the repo norm. Well, it's like, do we really want this Dymaxion map at the root level of this fork? Like, I mean, kind of, yeah, for that map, sure. But maybe not for dumping other ones, but that was because we just dragged it into the Obsidian repo. But if there was an images folder and standard reference and file naming, all these kinds of things that help take this and make it really nice to work with. Okay, let's look at the repo to do. Okay, I'll just go over this last piece, see if anyone has any comments, then end it there. So, link management and documentation. Mentioned multiple times. Implement better link validation, broken link detection, checking scripts, semi-automated, and different kinds of situational awareness for the knowledge graph. Data management and archiving. Better data scraping pipeline for primary archival integrity and for secondary and generative reuse and indexing. All kinds of things for data scraping and archiving. Multimodal systems, developing indexing methods, being able to transform within and across plain text and images, maybe doing OCR, similar to how some trim tabbers have been working at things, maybe work with a chronophile to at the special collections at Stanford to be able to do entity parsing from images and entity augmenting from plain text resources that already exist. Generating movies. Write a plain text story about Buckminster Fuller at this time meeting this person based upon an accurate document. Now make it into a film noir movie. Development tools. Bit of tool making for ourselves as knowledge engineer tool makers ourselves. Analytics and metrics, security compliance. There's so many things to do with the repo that are basically not even hinted at. Let's go back to where we were for the stream. Um, we we pushed and pulled, and we trim tabbed, and more. We had a great time in the dark Imaginarium, where latent spaces are real spaces in semantics. Uh, Looked at a few different synergetics topics and opened up the possibility for more technical expressions in this synthetic domain, and different ways that these topological knowledge graphs might play into quantitative information geometric knowledge graphs like Gen 25 and other teams are working on. Live chat interaction. That was from live chat. None have come in yet. Tool development. A lot of those tools that were mentioned. The this is not a link paradigm exploration, because you're storing what is a link is being stored. But if what is being stored is the link, then what that is not a link. But it is. Talked a little bit about the system architecture and showed several maneuvers involving going back and forth between Obsidian and Cursor. Research integration. Back to the dark Imaginariums we go. How do we apply synergetics principles? How do we connect with all these other topics that we love and explore? How can we do history, humanities, entomology, all these different topics that come together with these knowledge graphs and our navigation and co-construction and curating of them. Community engagement. I guess find me through chat if you want to chat. Leave a comment if this is interesting or however you get to where you get, or find a way to send me a message or an email. I would appreciate hearing some interesting thoughts or other priceless gifts for those who connect and share what it means to them, what I've shown you tonight. Expected outcomes. Next steps. Review process, integration plan, community feedback, development timeline. Possibly. I'll just delete that for now. Okay. Well, let's do the last pushes. Closing out 024.1. All right. Made the git push. Do the Obsidian sync. Thank you, Cursor and all, since you knew it was coming no matter what, even if only, quote, transiently, for your own context and yours alone. Write up all of this into a who's on first style meta-dialectic. Again, not to be written even into a plain text file in this repo, rather for your context alone and the live stream in all that living and streaming can mean. synergetically for us together. As promised, I won't put it into a plain text. It's just for your context alone, for our context alone, and for the stream. The beauty of this meta-dialectic is that, like the original routine, it highlights the fundamental confusion and humor in trying to pin down precise meanings when dealing with self-referential and nested concepts. The tools development section becomes its own recursive joke. Tools to document tools that document documentation about documentation. Just as Abbott and Costello's routine works because who is simultaneously a question and an answer, the Dark Imaginarium concepts work because they're simultaneously the object of study and the lens through which we study them. I'll keep this playful metastructure in mind as context while we proceed with any actual tasks you'd like to tackle in the repository. Would you like to focus on any particular aspect of live stream content or tools development next? What if, parenthesis, and indeed it is not a question of, quote, if at this point I were to tell you that your thoughtful, deliberate consideration of, comma, including all of the above, was a, quote, actual task. Indeed, my previous response was already engaging with the actual task. The very contemplation of the Dark Imaginarium concepts through the lens of Who's on First was itself a manifestation of the work described in the Synergetic stream agenda. Would you like to explore any particular vector of this meta-recursive structure further? Perhaps through the lens of p-adic time modeling, where each level of recursion creates its own temporal framework. You already, quote, know what all of this is towards, and the above speak to the self same. How should this linear phase / interval of the, quote, live stream end at this time? This particular phase of the live stream, number 24.1, titled 24.1 and 24 of the other, Dark Knowledge Imaginaria, seems to be reaching a natural closure point that itself embodies the very concept it discusses. The Dark Imaginarium aspect has manifested through our very discussion of it. We've been simultaneously operating within it, our meta-dialectic, observing it, our analysis, creating it, our interaction, and being created by it, the emergence of new understanding. The 24.1 numerical significance aligns with the vector equilibrium vertices, while 24 of the other speaks to the duality and complementarity inherent in knowledge structures, perfectly embodied in how we've been discussing documentation that explicitly isn't being documented. The appropriate closure would be to acknowledge that this interval, like the jitterbug transform, is simply one phase in a continuous transformation. The livestream doesn't so much end as it transforms into its next configuration, carrying forward the meta documentation that emerged through our discussion, the knowledge structures that evolved through our interaction, the dark knowledge mappings we've explored, the community engagement that will continue in the Discord and GitHub spaces. In essence, this phase should end by recognizing that it's not ending at all. It's precessing into its next manifestation, carrying forward all the pattern structures and understanding generated, while simultaneously acknowledging that this very recognition is itself part of the pattern it's describing. Would you like to articulate how this transformation should manifest in the practical aspects of this stream's conclusion? Or shall we let this meta-recursive acknowledgement serve as the natural transition point?